All right, all right. Get it rolling. It's Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Woodshed. I'm your host, Andy. Behold my stuff. All right, so I thought, look, it's been so much work this week, and I thought what might be kind of fun, and it could be terrible. You guys could hate it, but I thought what might be kind of fun would be doing a little Q&A. There's a lot of times that the chat is rolling, and I can't really dig in there and do some Q&A. So this is your time to ask a lot of questions. Now, with that said, we've got a part 1 and 2, so I'm just going to assume nobody shows up, even though I see 2 people here already. All right, let's assume nobody shows up. Pro tips on touring. I'm a toursman. I have toured many a tour, been known to do the tour. I've been touring live professionally since 2014 on what I call the major leagues, the NFL, the big boy leagues. That means that somebody carries your stuff for you. Now, before then, in my early 20s, I was paying my dues in a band called Down From Up. And that band, we were like right on the verge of some decent success. And we were being looked at. We did a 5-song EP. We had an album or 2, and we did a 5-song EP with Nick Brasky-Lennox. And we were touring with like opening for Seven Dust and Drowning Pool and 10 Years and these kind of modern rock bands. Back then, that was like me, loading my own guitars and changing my own strings and kind of, you're 20 years old and you're throwing your stuff in a trailer and pulling it behind a van and doing the best you can. Now in 2014, I had my first big boy gig, and I've been at it ever since. And of course, COVID happened, but it wasn't long after that back out on the road. Now I've been at a point, it's been a really blessing over the past few years, where I'm getting to play my own stuff, headlining set at Dallas Guitar Show last year was really great. So, the Sir Clinic thing that we did last year was really great. I've got a show coming up March 7th at Guitar Sanctuary. There's going to be more dates announced real soon on the solo stuff. And one of the things that I take part in over the past couple of years is being the musical director for Shiprocked. And what Shiprocked is a big music festival on a cruise. Like you've seen Kiss do them, and Monsters of Rock does one. This is my maybe 10th or 11th appearance on Shiprocked. I've been doing them for a long time. But to clarify, it's my 3rd year as the musical director for Stowaways. And one thing to be on the ship as an artist, and that is in my opinion, is very prestigious. Anytime you get an opportunity to be on a festival with some big bands, the bands that play Shiprock are huge. Like they've had Korn and Papa Roach and Killswitch Engage, Godsmack. They've had the who's who, Hailstorm of modern rock. And it's always been very honoring, prestigious to be a part of Shiprock as a solo artist and get to play my guitar music and play the songs off my records. And it's going to be a really fun year this year because I have a new record and a lot of new songs. But let me tell you about what it is with being the musical director. And then I'll give you guys a chance to fire off some questions over in the chat. I'm kind of reading it as we go. Being the musical director involves, I'm getting the text as I am doing this. Being the musical director involves a couple of different things. One, let me tell you what it doesn't involve. I don't do any hiring or firing. So when you see the Stowaways lineup, I didn't hire or fire anybody. I didn't. I don't get to choose who's coming in or what. That's not my bag. But what I do get to do is be heavily involved with the arrangements and how the show is going to be. So first of all, what is the Stowaways? The Stowaways is a big headliner set. They actually do 2 of them on the week. The cruise is a week long. And the Stowaways sets started, I think, in like 2009, 8 or 9. I can't remember. And it's a situation where one set is all of the songs are themed to whatever that year's Shiprocked cruise is themed to. Last year was themed to like Hollywood monsters and stuff. So we were doing songs like Dragula and Number of the Beast and all this kind of stuff. And this year is a really cool theme. It's got this like Miami Vice, cyberpunk, cybersex kind of thing going on, like Crockett and Tubbs, white suits, pastel t-shirts. It's that kind of thing. And when I say we, I mean 60 plus artists. So each set will have around 21 songs. It's a 90-minute set. It's a full headliner set. You know, it's like the main stage, biggest stage on the boat, and it's a 90-minute set. And the artist roster, each song is curated where it's different 4 or 5 different players, and it's all just different rock stars, and they're all doing their thing. You know, it may be like Jesse from Killswitch on lead vocals, and Mariah from Plush on lead vocals, or Joey Belladonna from Anthrax is doing vocals, and maybe like, you know, Haley on drums, or, you know, JD from Black Label Society on bass. It's like we've got a killer group of rock stars, and I really mean that word. These are, you know, it's like it's rock stars. It's really fun. What the work comes in when it comes time to get all of the tunes ready, and that means, you know, what I like to do is have my trio, which is my 2 of my most trusted lieutenants, is Ben Eller and Andy Campbell, and we learn all 40 plus songs as a trio, as if we had to play it karaoke style with a singer we've never heard. The reason we do it that way is we know everything that needs to happen within the song to make it work. And maybe we'll get into some of that here in a minute if we have enough time after the Q&A portion. And what ends up taking place is there's a ton of keyboard stuff, and I'll learn all the keyboard parts on guitar. There's, you know, like random percussion, and we basically arrange things to where it can fit within a trio. Now, from there, when we get on the cruise ship, which we will be on Saturday, we leave this week, so there'll be no live stream next week, no show next week. When we get to the cruise ship, we start having rehearsals on the cruise ship with the artists. And that ends up being really nice opportunity to expand. We have our keyboard players, guest keyboard players, Josh and Rachel. And then we have all of the different artists, different guitar players, Jason Hook, formerly of Five Finger Death Punch, and now in Flat Black. These guys just fall in and do the thing. And so if all goes according to plan and then the work is done properly, we can be like, okay, that's this. Everybody's like, all right, cool, it works. So it's a lot of work. Now, when it comes to, you know, how much lead time I like to put in, this comes into tour pro tip number 1. Tour pro tip number 1. You will never, ever be over prepared. You'll never be over prepared. Listen to the songs, play them. I've been sitting at home working on these tunes for, 6 hours a day, just making sure I've got everything in. I've charted the songs as well, and that's just not even about having the chart ready or reading a chart. It's just another way to bring in the information in your eyes. You're just like, okay, I know this is going to happen. It ties all of your stuff together. And so being prepared is the most important pro tip I could give. The next level down from that, especially when you're on the road, is knowing where you can cut corners, so to speak. For example, in perfect world, if you wanted to do everything like spot on, note for note, you'd have a wall of different amps behind you and you use different amps for every song. You have to choose. You have to choose what the lineup's going to be. Part of that is my job as well, is coordinating with the back line what we're going to do. And we're rockers. We got guys that enjoy rock. So what do I use? That'd be a question that you probably think. And what amps are you going to use? For the stowaway sets, I really love to use EVH 5153s. And this is pro tip number 1 or pro tip number 3. Finding an amplifier or rig to go out with that if it breaks, you can get another one. I love vintage Marshalls, right? I mean, like behind me, you've got a Shaw, a Dr. Z, a SL68, a Diesel Herbert, a 2-Rock, and a 1969 Marshall above that. You can't trust a 1969 Marshall. It's like, it's gonna break. I mean, look at that old 63 Deluxe. It's like, it's gonna break. It's like having a sports car. You kind of fall in love with the idea of like, well, gotta get this replaced, gotta get this fixed, you know. I really am a big advocate for finding pieces of gear that are trustworthy. And I'm not saying that the EVH is a degradation in tone, but I am going to word it like this. I would rather take a 10% tonal sacrifice, and have something that I can count on. Or if it breaks, I can just go to Guitar Center and get another one. Not that there's a Guitar Center on the ocean, but there is a Guitar Center in Miami. So if we have a problem on the boat before we leave port, we can get another, you can get an EVH 5153 kind of anywhere. And that's a great amp. The amp that I like to backline for my Andy Wood solo music, an amp that I find that's at every backline company in the world, and I've used them for years, is the Mesa Boogie Lone Star. That's just a workhorse that a lot of backline companies have. And, it's not a Bella or a SL68, which I normally play through. I normally play Sur amps, but it's an amp that is everywhere. Like every backline company has that. So that's that, having gear that you can trust. You're probably going to, next question is, what are you going to do for effects? How are you going to do it with 60, probably, I think we're around 20 guitar players. Sophie Lloyd's going to be on it. A lot of great guitar players, and I want them to feel at home. So what I have done, again, with being over-prepared, building a sound that is every guitar player is going to be happy with. So the 5153 has what? It's got 3 things on it. It's got a clean channel, a blue channel, which is like, it goes really heavy rhythm, and then a red channel for your lead tone. For effects, I have reached out to my friends at Fractal. I love their effects. I think Fractal effects are on par with an Eventide. I do. And so the Fractal VP4 came out this year. It's my favorite piece of gear that came out this year. I think it was a great year for guitar gear. There's a lot of really great products came out. But I think the Fractal VP4 is my favorite thing that came out. And so what I did was I built a guest setting, and there's 4 buttons on it. One is a noise gate. One is a little bit of a pitch shift, kind of doing the Van Halen pitch shift thing where it's not chorus, but it's some water, some sheen, and then a delay and a reverb. And they can just step on any one of those that they want. And then of course, the foot channel on the Van Halen amp has all 3 buttons. So everything that they need is right there. It's really easy to look down. I don't have to teach anybody how to use it. That we're not bringing on and off pedal boards for every single person. That's a nightmare. Let me tell you, that is a nightmare. Every single guitar player coming up there with their own pedal boards in between to play one song and then go right back off the stage. You're just like, that's not good. So being prepared. Now that goes back to point number 1, be prepared musically. Don't rely on your gear. Can you walk in and it be a different amp or a different, a different backline? And can you still do it? Can you still do your job? Right? That's really, really valuable information that I think most folks kind of take for granted. It's just knowing the songs inside and out. Okay, so now we got some folks rolling in here. And we got some questions going. We're going to take a break from the Shiprocked talk and the pro tips here for a second, because these pro tips are probably going to overlap into your questions. So now let's dig in deep with questions. This is a Q&A episode. I'm excited to have all you guys here. I really appreciate the support every week when we do these live streams. It's a delight. So let's hit some of this. Josh is saying, what is your favorite food to eat? I'm going to say on tour. It's really hard to eat healthy on tour because it's a lot of truck stops. It's a lot of airports. It's a lot of bus. It's a lot of that thing. One thing that I don't really do a lot when I'm home is get what would be like the commercial, not fast food, but commercial restaurant stuff. Like I don't, when I'm at home, I don't go to a Cheesecake Factory very often, anything like that. I like to eat at restaurants that are local to Knoxville, things like that. So when I'm on tour, the thing that I look for is actually that middle tier restaurant where I can get something, I can get it to go. Like if I see that we're in a city and a PF Chang's is close by, that's great. Chinese food heats up so good in a microwave, and PF Chang's is in almost every major city, and it's in Atlanta airport and stuff like that. So that's one that like I can get a meal there, eat there, and get something to go, get some fried rice or something like that to go. And that helps me dodge things like McDonald's. No, I'm not throwing shade at Mickey D, but it's like you can't just eat on that fast food stuff. It's just not good. So that's a thing. Jeremy's saying, go Buckeyes. I get it, man. My UT Vols, they fell apart, and that's all there is. Okay, so anchor management. Any classic, simple country licks that are in your grab bag? Yeah, let's grab a guitar. Let's grab a guitar. Okay, so when I think of classic, simple country grab bag type of licks, it's more about, how do I say this? Not really about a lick. It's about a visualization of the fretboard that I like. Let me get tuned up here and we'll do some examples here. Okay. Let's get a proper Brent. I mean, I always think Brent, like when it comes to country guitar, I'm always thinking about Brent and Albert Lee and some John Jorgensen, those type of cats. Let me turn on this secondary camera, which should be right there. Cool. So my visualization for the fretboard will kind of fall out in a couple of different ways. One, I want to use as many open strings as possible when I'm playing country music. So, for example, that's just looking at G the way a guitar player may go. I'm going. Okay. Again, that's like just a visualization of I want an open string. So maybe if I've got a lick that comes from this position, right? Let me play that kind of lick slow. That's a very bluegrass inspired way of thinking about country picking. But it's also not that far away from the Brent thing. That kind of line, right? You can see all those open strings happening in the hot wired. It's hard for me to play it slow. So even right there, when you see it around that 4 chord, you see those open strings. So that section of music that I just played just then, or that line, be number 2 is looking at double stops as much as I can. So, like I'm looking at as many of these double stops as I can. So I have A here. I would also have the double stops that are adjacent to each other. So it's the same A position right there. That's like mixing the double stops in with the open string licks. Mixing the double stops and the open string licks together, right? Okay, the last thing that I think of is pedal steel bends. And obviously things that go from the 2 to the 3, the 7 to the 1, 4 to 5. Here's the 2 to 3 again. Those are like default things for me when it comes to that. Great question. Okay. How do you deal with sickness on tour? Coming from Nicholas. Man, there's a good friend of mine. He's one of my best friends. His name's Matt. And Matt plays guitar for the band 10 years. And I've known him for a long time. He's been a very, very close friend of mine for a very long time. And he and I have the running joke where there's no sick days in rock and roll. And boy, it's the truth. I specifically remember one Rascal Flatts show I was doing, and I just had to tell him to go get a trash can and just set it right behind my riser. You know, like I'd stand on the riser, the crowd would be out here. Right behind my riser, just have a trash can. I just step down, puke it up into the trash can, get back on the riser, and never stop playing. Just slacking. It's still, still chugging away on whatever Flatts tune we were doing, right? Just like, it was bad. So that one definitely would. Definitely. When you get sick on tour, all you can really do is try to find a CVS or a Walgreens and just try to get some vitamins in you and go do the job. There's not a day off in it. You don't get to call in sick because that show is happening. Whether you are sick or not, the show is going on. Jeremy says last year, he did a gig in Florida. Some fans of his were leaving his gig going straight to Shiprocked. Yeah, Shiprocked, I mean, it's huge. Thousands of people do this thing. Popal Jams is in the house. Do you take a dedicated tech for yourself? or is there a couple of people that are just jack of all trades? In general, I take John Cooper most of the time when I can, when budgets and everything allow. John Cooper is very, very trusted guy. Not only can he, change strings and make sure guitars are in tune and running right and everything, I trust that. John's kind of always got my back. It's very valuable to me to have another set of eyes side stage that are looking for the things that I can't see, and that can be a plethora of different things. It's like if there's a fight in the audience, or if somebody passes out because they're got too hot and dehydrated or something like that. I mean, that's really valuable to me. A tech goes beyond. I think it's a given that you know how to make guitars play good. Just like if you're a musician, it's expected that you can play. Anything past that's what you're getting hired on. Maybe that's a great pro tip. It's expected that you know the music and can play the music. It's the next things up that keep you employed, right? And John he's got so much skill set that he brings to the table beyond just being able to be like, hey man, this guitar plays good, or man, we need to change strings on this, Mark Kirby in the house. Mark says, Andy, how about a separate video where you go through a Charisma track by track with the guitars and amp and pedal chain for each, for the gear nerds? For example, gearbox plus woodshed plus which side? That'd be a great video, Mark. Maybe we could, is that one video or is it each song? Maybe we just do each song and break each piece of each song down. That could be really fun. That might be a nice mini series. Okay, JTB says, I was checking out the new 2025 models with the new Sir pickups. Looks pretty nice. It's been a crazy week. If you have kept an eye on the pulse of the guitar industry, Fluff just released a press release regarding his stuff with Gibson and Boogie, and I personally, Fluff is a great friend of mine. He's a dear friend, and he was a guest at Woodshed, and he is a Boogie expert. So I hate to see that unfold the way it did, and that's how I'll say it. Keith Owens Music says, I saw that Rascal Flatts is playing the inauguration. Are you going to be there? My sister and brother-in-law are going. I'm not going to be there. The Flats are doing 21 dates this year in February and March, and at the end of February, it goes into March. I'm still going to play with Gary LaVox, who is the lead singer. I'm not going to do this run of flat shows because I'm doing so much of my solo music, and it just is. I'm very lucky to have as much demand for my solo stuff as I do, and I think it's time to really make that commitment into full-blown solo artist. That's the number one priority. And it's because of guys like y'all hanging out with me every week. It's because of you guys come to the shows, you guys come see me at the clinics, and you guys are you're the guitar community. We're the fellowship. I always call it that. It's like the fellowship of the guitar is what has allowed me to move the ball farther down the field, and it's like we're at a different point now. I'm very, very blessed to say that. And I want to keep it going, and I want to keep making awesome stuff for you guys. So yeah. Great question though, and the boys are going to do great. I mean, it's Jim Riley and Nick's in the band. It's great. It's going to be killer. Jeremy is saying fractal. I don't know the reference to that. Maybe when I was talking about the VP4. JTB says I've got a head rush and a hot bone Ampero stump. I'm done lugging around amps and gear. Man, if you can make that happen, that's amazing. I really want to be there. I'm not there yet. I can't let it go. I'm still going to lug around those amps. And I'll tell you why. This is another pro tip. You got to play the stuff that inspires you. I look at music as such. It's something that's great that I want to be a part of. And I love it. And when I play it, I want to have fun and be inspired and be a part of that moment. right? Like when all cylinders are firing and it's really good. And for me, it's really difficult to get into that headspace if I'm not inspired by the sound that I'm getting on stage. It can actually be super distracting. And at that point, I'm thinking about the sound and why I can't get the sound that I want, instead of what line I want to play or what pickup I want to be on, or like what song's coming next, or was the verse next, or what, it's like I want to be inspired by the tone. And right now, hybrid rigs are the most inspiring thing for me. By that, my rig is a hybrid rig where I'll take like this SL68 and I'll take my gearbox as the main source of dirt. And then I'll have maybe a Halo or a VP4 or something like that doing delays and maybe some pitch shift occasionally. And when I say a hybrid rig, I will use something like a universal audio aux, and I'll use zero attenuation. The amp is wide. The amp is rocking. I don't attenuate with the load box at all. I'm only using it to send my tone to front of house. The reason I do it that way is because a microphone will move throughout the evening, and then my tone becomes inconsistent from song to song, or if somebody steps on a chord and moves it, it's like you're dealing with something that's like, if you take a microphone on the front of the speaker and you just go, it's like, that's how much it affects your tone. So if I use a UA load box to go to front of house, it's super consistent. It's the same thing. It really, really great. That works for me, and that keeps me inspired, and it keeps a clean signal to front of house for the guitar tones. And it works for me right now. Not to say that, something couldn't change. It was a great time to be alive as a guitar player, gear guy, because stuff's changing all the time. Right. And, I think the VP4 is really exciting. I think it's great to be able to dodge a microphone in a live setting, unless you have ISO cabinets or something like that. That works for me. So JTB, I'm just happy that you got a head rush, and that's doing it for you, man. I definitely envy people that can take a modeler and they're super thrilled with it. I'm just not there yet. But I do love the fractal stuff, and I think they make great gear, and I'm actually playing through it. Literally, I'm playing a fractal right now for those country tones. Out of tune country tones. Man, that's rocking. That sounds great. So yeah, I mean, it's just when you get into a room, right now I'm in a controlled environment. This is my studio. Like, I'm in a controlled environment. When I'm in a room, all bets are off. I need that thing. And now, with that said, I haven't tried the Laney cabinet that Guthrie Govan's been using. And he is a guy that, he's always been a Valve amp guy. And so for him to find something that works with that Laney cabinet, I'm interested. I want to try that thing. Especially if Laney makes a 412 that's stereo. Ooh. You know what I'm saying? I think that's the ticket. Okay. Wayne is in the house and Troy is in the house. Shout out to the Woodshed Patreon. Patreon.com/AndyWoodMusic. All you guys are the reason we get to do this stuff. So shout out to my Woodshed members. Wayne says, how many techs do you have to do for setup and troubleshooting? In general, a pro tour, let's say an arena level tour or a big boy tour, you're for sure going to have a tech for every band member. You got a tech for the keys. You got a tech for the bass. Bass and guitar tech tend to overlap. Unless it's a band like, Rush or something where like everybody gets their own tech. We had 2 guitar techs for flats. We had a bass tech that just did J. It wasn't even like a bass tech. It was like J's tech. And then we have a drum tech. That was the flats scenario. So on average, you're going to have 3 to 5 techs, for a big monster tour. So, yeah, it takes it, it takes that kind of thing. It takes that many people just to make sure everything's right. Great question, Wayne, though. Yeah, it's like you got to have folks. Okay, Taco Bell will get its revenge. Sure will. JTB says, I got the Core over the Prime because the Prime is too big for my needs. I also use the Prime as a desktop studio. Couldn't set up how I wanted to. Yeah. It's like it's just like finding something that really works for you. Josh says, who's a guitarist you haven't had a chance to jam with but would love to? There's 2 right off the top of my head. Derek Trucks, Jimmy Herring. Number 3 would be Dan Huff. Number 4, Mike Landau. No particular order. Those are 4 that I'd love to jam with. I've been blessed though, man. I've got to play with some of my favorite players ever. I've played with Eric Johnson, Steve Morse, John Petrucci, Mateus Asado, Paul Gilbert, Andy Timmons, Mark Lettieri, Greg Cox. These are all guys that are just bros. They're bros and they're great. Those would be big ones. Dan, I would love to play some music with Dan. I would love for Dan to, just be around that guy and learn from him. Landau would be another one. I've never got a chance to jam with Lukather. I'd love to jam with Lukather. That hadn't happened yet. And you go into those situations, it's like, yeah, I hope you beat me up. I hope you beat me up and take my money, Slash, like, hot take, at least in the guitar technician circles, I kind of see Slash get hated on in YouTube comments or Facebook comments from like technical players. Like, they make some. Slash is the GOAT. Like, when it comes to writing a great solo, Slash can write some melodic, catchy, great rock and roll stuff. I'd love to jam with Slash. Here's one that you're not gonna expect. Dave Navarro. I love Dave Navarro. I think he's hyper creative, super creative guitar player. One of my favorites. I'd love to jam with Dave Navarro. I'd love to jam with Neil Sean because Neil looks like he has so much fun. He's just happy to be playing the guitar. I'd love to jam with Satriani. I've never jammed with Satch. I've never jammed with Vi. Those are 2 big ones. But I've been lucky to play with so many great guitar players that I really love. Let's check out some more questions. I'm digging in. Carson says, any thoughts on the Randall Smith fluff thing with Gibson? Maybe a masterclass discussion. That's a great point, Carson. So on my Patreon, I run a masterclass, a weekly live masterclass, and it's private, just to Patreon members. But it allows me to speak really freely. And I can be super edgy in that because it's not a public forum. So, yeah, it's just for my Patreon members. But if you want to be a part of that masterclass, that'll be probably a definite topic for this week. That masterclass, we do 4 of those a month on Wednesday nights, and it's $25 a month, and you get 4 live masterclasses that are 2 hours long. So yeah, it's a great deal if you're interested. My public thoughts on it, something that I don't mind saying online. Fluff knows boogie amplifiers. Daggum, just about as good as anybody I would ever know of. I mean, he's the guy, like, especially when it comes to rock metal, dual rec tones. And I think in the best, what I would like to see is let me word it like this. If I was in charge at Gibson, if I was CEO or whatever, chief public marketing operations, if I was that person, the person that handles the face of the company. If I was that guy, I would personally, from my Andy Wood account and from the Gibson page, reach out, and this is how I would say it. Community is what makes guitar special. If you play guitar to an empty room, there's nothing special about it. You're there for yourself. You could do that at home. Community, like this is a public room right now. Even though it's digital, we're still in the room together. Community is what drives the music industry. It's what makes music special. It's a language. And if I was that community manager, I would say the last thing that I want to see is one of the pillars of the guitar community and one of the legacy brands have a fractured relationship. And I want to invite Fluff in to be a guest on a Gibson showcase and talk about boogie amplifiers. And I would bury the hatchet. That's how I would do it. Now, I'm not saying that Gibson's wrong or Fluff's wrong. I mean, personally, if I knew information, like basically this all boils down to Fluff had put a Facebook post out and said, hey, yeah, Gibson fired Randall Smith. Two things took place with that. One, Fluff shared information that may or may not have been ready to be shared publicly. Two, if Gibson's so ashamed of that, why did you do it? Why did you handle it that way? So I think this is an instance where both parties can be handling their points of view as well as they can and also be a little wrong. Like I think both parties can be wrong. And I think both parties have handled themselves publicly just fine. But what's happened? We've had a fracture in the community between the boogie YouTuber. There's not anybody on YouTube that does boogies better. It's just, there's not. The end. It's like if John Petrucci or Andy Timmons quit playing boogies. You're just like, what? Or Carlos Santana. Like boogies are synonymous with a couple of people. And out of the young blood, new generation guys, especially when it comes to dual Rex, it's Fluff, man. Tremonti's playing PRS amps. Dude, that ship set sailed. Mark's gone. Mark's not playing boogies, Right? You have to see that from the C-suite perspective and go, hey man, we may have kind of knocked this a little too far. We should have sent a slap on the wrist. Hey, don't post stuff until we let you know what we're going to post, our preferred, public release form or how we're going to announce it or whatever. But I think that's a fracture that's not a good look. And that's how I'll say it. I think it's not a good optic. But we will have a much more unapologetic version of that on my masterclass. I'll have some good thoughts. Hell, I may get Fluff to be a guest. He's great. Right now, I see a very special friend of mine, Leo from Frog Leap Studios. You guys have seen his covers on the internet. He has been such a blessing the past couple of years with Stowaways. This man is an entertainer. Don't get it twisted. The guy can do this amazing work in his studio at home and make these killer videos and these killer covers. The dude is a menace on stage. Leo has done some of my favorite moments of Stowaways. He did Du Hast one year. He did Alice in Chains one year. I mean, Leo is a live persona. So we're going to get to jam this year again. So Frog Leap, my man Leo, I'm blessed to know you, brother, and I can't wait to play some music with you in just a few days, in a week. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. So scrolling down, best wishes for 2025 to you guys as well, man. Fishbowl, take vitamin C and D. Yep, great. Neurovirus, we're talking about viruses here. Dayquils. I don't know the answer there. I'm not an MD. Amir J has a very loaded question. Will you ever play only like a Kemper live? Oh, Chuck's laughing. Our moderator, Chuck, is laughing. I can hear it. He's in San Jose. I'm in Tennessee. Chuck is laughing at this question. Will I play a Kemper live? In its current state, no way. I can't get it to do it. I'm not saying it's a bad piece of gear. One of my favorite guitar players on earth is Jimmy Olander. And he plays a Kemper live. And he sounds immaculate. Jimmy Olander is an immaculate player. I can't get the Kemper to do what I want it to do. It's good for those that love it. Can't do it. So Josh says, Chevelle is a band that drop tunes their guitars sometimes 2 steps down. That would be down to a C. How do they do so without the rattle? Great question. Great question. Drop tuning guitars. So this leads to pro tip, whatever number we're on, pro tip, whatever. Play the right string gauge for the right guitar and the right tuning. String gauge and setup will allow you to drop tune. I have a couple of loose rules. I move up a gauge for every step that I go down. If I'm playing in, let's say, C on a Gibson scale length, let's say it's a whole step with a drop C, kind of like the some of the Breaking Benjamin tunings and stuff like that. I'll use 11 to 52. On a Fender scale length with the headstock that goes this direction, it's not reversed, I use 9 to 46. On a Gibson in standard where the headstock is 3 on a side, I use 10 to 46 because I want a uniformed feel across the guitar. When I play a half step down on a Fender scale length with a Floyd Rose, I use 9.5 to 44. When I play a half step down on a Gibson, I still keep it at 10 to 46. It's just a little slinkier. When I go down again, another half step, that goes up to 11s. You got to use the correct string gauge. And then you'll have to adjust the neck and the setup of the guitar because strings get thicker as they get into the gauge, right? And have a good guitar stuff. Yeah, great stuff right here. VIA says maybe you have an amp in a box if you don't have any valve amp on stage. I mean, that's the thing you got to figure out the situation. It's just when people are hiring me at this point in my career, I'm getting hired upon an expected level of expertise, an expected level of delivery, and an expected level of tone. And that sounds condescending, and it's not meant to. I'm not meant to say that. It stresses me out because people expect me to be flawless, and nobody's flawless. A professional environment puts a very high level of stress on you. So when somebody cuts a fat check to me do my thing, I need it. It goes without saying that, like, yeah, this is what you're buying. You're buying this. You're buying me to bring this, right? It's different if you're a doctor and you're putting people to sleep day in and day out and waking them up. You're cutting them. And then on the weekend, you want to go play at the local bar. That's a different scenario, man. Take a pod. Like you're having fun at that point. It's a difference in self-awareness on what you're trying to do and what's being expected of you. So I don't think that makes, I don't mean that as a gatekeeping thing where somebody is, oh, you're better if you blah, 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 you're worse if you play. No, I don't mean it that way. If I was going to play a church gig and they said, hey man, no amps on stage, but okay, cool. Bring the Fractal to be on my way. But in general, when I get called to play guitar, it's with an expected level. Like when Sweetwater calls me to come to Sweetwater and play videos, like you guys have seen the Shoot the Sundown video, and I'm playing the SL. They want the tone. They want the thing that's like on the records. It's like, hey man, Do it. Do the thing that you do. And when that's the case, I'm just like, yeah, if you want the Brad Paisley thing, get the Dr. Z. Don't use the model of the Dr. Z. Use the Dr. Z. It really not efficient. This is not an efficient way to do business, but it's very much, you guys know, I love my cars. I love sports cars. It's very much like once you get a car so fast and it's on the racetrack, it ceases to become functional on the street. And things that work really well on the track, you'd be in a ditch if you drove it on a public highway, right? Very much like this. If you take a SL68 100 watt Plexi style amp to your blues jam, you're going to end up in a ditch and they're going to kick you off stage. You're going to be like, dude, bring a Blues DeVille or a Deluxe. You don't need to bring that monstrosity. That thing's a menace. You know what I mean? But it's like, it just comes to what's expected of you. Yeah, great questions. Mark Kirby again here saying, Hedgehog, clean with pedals versus Bella clean with pedals. Is it worth having both for different voicings, deep and mid switches? Am I being greedy? Mark, if you want to look into this, the Hedgehog and the Bella were both used on the Sir Live in the Studio sessions that I did with Ben Eller and Jules. We did Bella on some and Hedgehog on others. The album Junktown was pretty much split in half on Bella and Hedgehog. Hedgehog has got like a girthy mid-range. It's snottier, really great kind of thing, fat, And the Bella's got that Fendery thing that's really nice, glossy, scooped. Bella's got a beautiful little scoop to it that just magic. Yeah, Arcadia says, good problem to have. Can't play with Rascal Flatts. Got too much solo stuff. I mean, that's just, dude, so blessed. Like, just so blessed. And I hope I see you guys out on the road. If you get a chance and I'm playing in your town, please come up to the stage. Let me know. Shoot me a message. Come to sound check. I'd love to meet you guys in person. I mean, we're all in it together. we're all in the water together, right? Wes is here saying, playing the stuff that inspires you. If you think of any piece of gear as the best, you're right. That confidence does the best thing. It makes me forget about the gear and think about the music. That's the best piece of gear. The gear that you're not thinking about is the best. What do you think about the Kirk Hammett Gibson collab? I think it's fun. I do. I think those crazy collaborative guitars are super fun. Let me tell you this. If I had the money, I would get the Stairway to Heaven double neck. That's the one I would get. And it's what, 30 or 40 grand? Like, that's crazy. I'm not going to spend that. But if I had 30 or 40 grand and I was a crypto bro and I made fat money, I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to get that Jimmy Page guitar and I'm going to hang it on the wall because it's awesome. And then I'm going to play it live, like, what am I going to play it on? I don't know, but I'll figure it out. We'll cover, we'll freaking cover Stairway to Heaven, Matt's Music is in the house. Jay, thank you, Jay, for selling me the Dr. Z. It is fantastic. Love it to death. Shane, and guys, if you are looking for gear, if you're looking to buy an Andy Wood model, shameless plug, I don't care. Or if you're looking to get your hands on a Brent Mason Rewired or some of these types of things, get my boys, Matt's Music. They rule. They're my people. Love them. Okay, Shane is in the house. Andy, can you do a breakdown of some of the Dan Huff, Michael W. Smith solos from the 90s? I love your channel. God bless you. God bless you, Shane. I tell you what, if you, I'll make a deal with you. Join up on the Patreon. Send me a message on Patreon on which solo you'd like to hear, and we'll make it a thing. For those wondering, you can join the Patreon for no more than $5 American dollar papers. $5 gets you in the door, and then $25 gets you access to the master classes. The Patreon is fantastic. It's a great, great community over there. So Tom Atkins is saying Guthrie is using 2 Laney 212s. Hey, maybe that's what I need. 2 Laney 212s. All right. Area 859. Hey, Andy, are you setting up guitar gods for the next Woodshed camp experience? Is there guitarist you dream of that hasn't been any hints? I have said his name today, and I got off the phone with him, and he's going to be coming. So rewind this, and what name did I say? There's several. One's coming for sure. Love to jam with Alex Lifeson. Yeah, that would be great. I'd love to jam with Alex Lifeson. I did get a chance to meet Geddy Lee. Not yet. Brother 22 is chiming in with a great question. Hey, Andy, how often do you drive your Corvette? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm the proud owner of a Corvette Z06, the new mid-engine. It's a 24. And as you can tell, I don't have kids. If I had kids, I wouldn't have that car. I do get to drive it. It is obviously in winter. I don't take it out when the roads get super cold because the rear end will just, you can't drive it super aggressive when it gets cold like that. I drive it in the summers but the problem is like you go on tour, you don't get, I drive it when I can. I love that car. It's probably going to be the first car that stays with me. You know, I had a beautiful, Supra twin turbo that we changed to single turbo Supra, and I unfortunately had to let go of that car a few years ago. I miss it so much. But yeah, the Z06 is probably going to stay. What's a boogie? That's the Mesa Boogie amplifier. That's what we're talking about. Josh, Mesa Boogie amplifiers. Here we go. Chat, what's a boogie? Oh yeah, thanks. There we go. Tom Atkins says they are launching the new Dual Rex today, and the conversation is on the fracture. It's not a good look. Tom just nailed it. You got a dual rec coming out and the single biggest YouTuber isn't promoting it. Yikes. That said, man, I think Gibson's been in such a great spot lately. I got one of the new Murphy Labs Gibsons. Gibson's killing the game right now. You know, that's why I think there needs to be a bearing of the hatchet. That's what I think. Santa Cruz, not San Jose. Whatever. It's the same thing. It's not the same thing. Dustin says Kemper is not a modeler. I just picked the Kemper because it's kind of already answered the question earlier. Okay. Little chat here. Let's hit some. We got time for just a couple more questions. Going to take off and get to work on various Shiprocked things. And it looks like I might have to do some Michael W. Smith solos. So we'll figure that out. Dustin says a profiler. Kemper guys have scolded me for that for you. Yeah, you know, if it looks like a duck and walks like a duck, it's a duck. I don't care if you're profiling or modeling. That's a moot point. I don't care if it's sample. I don't care what you call it. It's a guitar and it's not an amplifier. It needs a power amp. It's a preamp. You can just basically say it's a preamp, you know. I don't care. Profiler, modeler, doesn't matter. I think I will say this on record. I think Fractal's king of the hill. They're the 800-pound gorilla. If you want the best in the modeling industry right now, in my opinion, it's Fractal. I mean, it is. Like, I can just hear people cringing. But it's like, yeah, it is. John Petrucci, Guthrie Govan, Steve Vai, Metallica, Def Leppard, Neil Schon. It's Fractal. Like, it's the industry standard. Like, it's the industry standard for a reason. You know, the trickle charge, the vet, I actually don't, I go crank it once a week and let it run. So far I hadn't needed a trickle charger. So it doesn't sit for months without being cranked. I believe in cranking the car and letting it, you know, run. And even if I just take it down the street, I don't get to go drive it, but I'm going to take it down the street and let some fluids pass through it. You know, I think you gotta drive them. Yeah. It's just like guitars, man. This one's got a couple of dings right here. You got to play them. You got to drive them. You know, that's the thing. I didn't buy it to lock it up in a prison. If you put makeup on the pig, in the end, it's still a pig. Yeah. I mean, I think the modelers and profilers are great. It's just, it's a tool for something else. Quad Cortex is nice. I mean, Quad Cortex is super nice. If the Neural guys want to send me one to review, I'll review it. I'm not asking for free gear. I'm just saying, like, I don't have one, so I can't give you a review on it. Kagler is hitting me with the question, Andy, are you coming to NAMM? I'm not. I will be on the 7 Seas out there in the ocean doing Shiprocked. However, I will be there in spirit as we are debuting 2 new items in the Andy Wood product line with Sir, and I am ecstatic. I'm thrilled. I can't wait for you guys to see them. I can't wait for you to see what they are. I can't wait for you to see the exclusivity. It's just such a cool thing we've done. And that's where we're going to leave it. But yeah, Sir's got some great stuff coming. Jeff says the Lizzie Hell Explorer is so sweet. It really is. And it's an Epiphone. I got it for $900 on Reverb, and it's a monster. I think, great stuff. If you're going to NAMM, you have to go to the Sir booth. Yeah, you might even catch Chuck hanging out over there, but we have some cool stuff coming out with Sir that I can't wait to talk about. Really, really going to be great. You got to stir up the fluids, correct? Yeah, you have to. You have to. Andy, will you be laughing like a pirate out on sea? Yeah, for sure. For sure I will be. Mark says I have a Z3 on trickle charge. I feel guilty. No, I mean, who knows? The Z3 may have a stronger pull, My Supra would go dead after about 5 or 6 days, but I had a lot of things on that car. That was a very, very modded car. I mean, there was a big 63 trim dual ball bearing turbo. It had VPC, boost controller, like all the digital boost controller, all of that stuff, man. It was, the HKS stuff. So that thing would go dead quick. Dustin says, is $25 the Patreon tier where we can request? I'd pony up a month or two to get some requests. Absolutely. As the tiers scale, your priority in line scales. So people at the higher tiers get to make requests before the smaller tiers. But $25, you can for sure get in there and request some things, Dustin. And also you can join us on the live master classes. That's where you really want to be, because then you're on Zoom with me and you can just be like, hey, Andy, show me how to, and I'll be like, okay, like this. Like that's a live thing. Jim Dover says, is the Andy Wood store on your website coming soon? Also, Patreon Masterclass is full of guitar information. My Michael W. Smith, Dan Huff solo choice would be Secret Ambition. Jim, I'm going to let Chuck answer that on the store because I'm going to poke him. Dustin says, lol, unfortunately, due to a wide time, the master classes don't work for me. Good thing is, Dustin, is we record those. So they are constantly viewable within the link. Dan Anthony is in the house. Hello, Dan. We're wrapping up here. A beautiful stream today. A great hang. Great to see you guys. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me. Remember, there's not going to be a show next week because I will be on Shiprocked doing the thing with those guys. I hope you enjoyed some pro tips here this week and some Q&A. This was really rewarding for me. My hands are getting kind of cooked after several 6-7 hour day rehearsals. It's like, there's a lot of notes to be played. Chuck is saying the store is very close. We're working through a couple of technical things before we launch. Absolutely. There it is. It's close, guys. Thanks to you all. Thanks to Chuck for moderating, as always, putting in the extra hours. Mike, great to see you. +1 on the master class. It's well worth the cash. Appreciate all you guys. Special shout out to all my Woodshed Patreon members. Much love to you. I know you guys know who the guest of honor will be this year. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for hanging out this week and be blessed. We'll see you real soon.